Israeli civilians living near the Israel-Lebanon border are being evacuated as tensions escalate along the border. Areas following clashes between the Israel Defense Forces and Lebanon's Hezbollah. Let's now get the latest. We cross to our correspondent Mia Alberti, who joins us live from Beirut. Mia, thank you so much for your time. We understand, of course, there have been sporadic infighting there and several people have been killed. Just bring us up to speed in terms of this particular fight. What is happening?
Yes, well, another day, 13th day of fighting between Hezbollah and Israel. Now we have seen more fighting across the border. And like you mentioned, Israel is evacuating the town of Kiryat Shmona, which was the one that was attacked on Thursday by Hamas fighters that launched at least 20 rockets there and have caused 3 civilians to be injured on the Israeli side. And so we're seeing the Israeli army taking those precautions. Now, on Friday, we are just hearing reports in the last hour, still trying to understand what is happening. We're still trying to gather this information, but we do have from Israeli media saying that there is some kind of clashes on the ground between fighters on this side of the border and Israel and the Israeli army as well. So we're still trying to understand what is happening. We did see a very tense situation on Thursday evening happening at the border, in which a team of 7 people, including journalists, were caught in the crossfire and had to request assistance from the Lebanese army and the United Nations to be evacuated. But one civilian, has been killed by Israeli forces, according to Lebanese authorities. So quite tense. We're continuing to see casualties, which is, of course, not a good sign. And we're seeing a lot of concern in Lebanon for residents here, both Lebanese and also foreigners, as we are seeing more and more embassies asking their citizens to leave Lebanon. We have heard just on Friday from Oman asking their citizens to leave immediately. The Dutch authorities also asking their citizens to leave the country. And more airlines are starting to cancelling their flights. On Friday, we already knew that Lufthansa and Swiss Airlines had cancelled their flights until the end of the month. Now Saudi Airlines have joined them in cancelling their flights until further notice. And also the Lebanese carrier Middle East Airlines has announced that it is reducing its operation, that about half of its flights will be suspended, and that is because its insurance cover has given them notice that it will not cover all of its flights. So a lot of concern here, especially among the foreigners that are still deciding to leave or not. After all, we all have our lives here. As the airport is still functioning, there's still not an immediate risk, not only to the airport, but to Beirut and Lebanon in general. But we are seeing these escape routes, if we can call them that, starting to narrow down. Even without an escalation, even without Hezbollah being in Israel, we're starting to see the options to leave the country to become narrower. And that's why a lot of countries like the US, UK and Canada have also said that citizens should leave while commercial flight options are still available. So all eyes on the border. We do know that what happens in Lebanon actually does not depend on what happens at the border, but at what happens in Gaza. So all eyes are on that after the Israeli army said it had given a green light for its army to start an incursion in Gaza. If something does happen, that could be the trigger here to push Hezbollah to join a war with Israel. So very, very fast development, a very fast situation happening here that we will continue to follow.
Mia, very quickly, just for some context, of course, this is not the first time that Hezbollah has fought against Israel. We saw this in 2006. In fact, that lasted for about 34 days. Just give us context in terms of what the contentious issues are now between Hezbollah and Israel. Is this just a show of support for Hamas, for the Palestinians? What's at play?
Well, that is the question. The question is, how far is Hezbollah willing to go with Israel? We know that Hezbollah was born from, Hezbollah's identity is based on being anti-Israel and for the proclamation of Palestine and the rights of Palestinians, and also of Lebanese here against Israeli forces. So that is why Hezbollah exists. Right now for Iran, it is a deterrence power to control, to try and deter Israel from really not only enter Lebanon, but to attack Palestinians in Gaza. We have heard many times from Iran and from Hezbollah officials saying that the choice to open a new front of war, to include others in this war, depends on what Israel does in Gaza. So we have that very clear message. Now, you did refer what happened before between Hezbollah and Israel. That was in 2006. We didn't have this context that we have now with this conflict, or very intense conflict going on in Gaza. And even this Hezbollah-Hamas partnership at the time was not so strong as well. But at the time, what happened was we saw Hezbollah kidnapped a number of members of the Israeli army, and that sparked a war between Hezbollah and Israel that was played out here in Lebanon. So we saw Israel bombing southern Lebanon, and that's why we're seeing thousands of people already evacuating from there. But also Israel bombed the southern suburbs of Beirut, which is considered the headquarters of Hezbollah, and they also bombed the airport, which is the only one in the country. And so that's why the government also on Thursday evening announced this plan that they are developing to act in case a war does break out. And inside of that plan is included the protection of important infrastructures such as the airport, main roads and bridges as well, which have been bombarded by Israel in the past, with some newspapers here on Friday calling it unofficial and undeclared state of emergency. So that's the context. And of course, the conversation here in Lebanon is, if Hezbollah does enter into a war in Israel, can we expect the same like we did in 2006? The same, Israel would target the same places, the suburbs, southern Lebanon and the airport, or could they go further, or could they just stay in the south? So in the end, the safety of all of these people here, including the Lebanese that don't have so many facilities to leave the country as foreigners do, is based on a lot of uncertainty.